It all started when I came across such pictures on Pinterest. This is glass. And as I don't work with glass, I decided to make it of epoxy resin. And now you can see how I traced the paper template with the cheapest acrylic liner. The most important thing is that it keeps volume and also so that the outline is bigger than the template itself. When the first layer is dry, I apply the second one. This will allow a thicker resin layer to be poured over. I do all this on a silicone mat on its glossy side, but you can use a regular paper file. I wanted to achieve an imitation of tinted glass, so my resin is tint. I achieved this color by repeatedly mixing red, yellow, black and green colors, constantly adding this or that color. I used alcohol ink for epoxy resin. It is an aid that allows you to maintain the transparency of the resin. It won't be cloudy, but everything depends on your taste. I wanted to make a kind of sun catcher, so all the elements had to be transparent, but I made some then solid white. Leave the blanks to cure to this state. The resin should be soft, flexible, but not sticky. And these are the leftovers of resin that I poured out without the foam work, which, as you remember, was the liner. At first, I wanted to trace the patterns with a knife, scratching a line. But it was too thin and inconspicuous. But then I decided to use a gel pen. I didn't use it immediately because I was afraid that the ink might stick to the resin, as it wasn't completely cured. And in some places it happened so, but this was just a little bit. Do you see the light areas? In these places resin drained, because there was a slight slope of the surface on which the workpiece is cured. This also needs to be considered. If the resin is transparent, then with the next fill it can be corrected and nothing will be noticeable. But this won't work with colored details. This is how the details look from the back. Therefore, I covered this side with a thin layer of resin, so that the surface is perfect. But there is also a subtlety here, more on that later. Two days later, I discover this. Yes, it happens. But look at this perfect glass. And here's the very subtlety. It was necessary to process all the blanks with fine sandpaper before pouring. This would create a good adhesion, and the resin would not drain like this. Now I smoothed all the edges with sandpaper. And since I need to make one more fill, this time I will take into account my mistakes. The work should be covered from dust. I didn't have such a large lid or something, so a few specks of dust still got into the fill. I protected the side that doesn't need to be processed with tape, so that this fine dust doesn't stick there. Before pouring, all elements should be rinsed from dust and be sure to wipe off water. I also clean the silicone mat. Scotch tape helps very well. Here in this place the workpiece stuck to the silicone. This is an indicator that the silicone mold has served its purpose. After complete curing, you can attach a wire contour. At first, I thought of attaching to UV resin, like this. But doing it this way was completely inconvenient. I put the blank, wrapped it with wire and cut it off. I chose copper-colored wire, about 1 mm in diameter. Then I pressed the resulting contour firmly and apply some UV resin and dry immediately. In this way I do around the entire perimeter. And then I turn it over and repeat all the same on the other side. I thought that I would be able to neatly attach the contour and that there would be no UV stains. However, no. Therefore, I had to make 2 more additional fills, on one side and on the other one. If necessary, wipe all the details from dust, and don't forget to protect your work from dust too. Again, a few specks of dust ruined everything for me. After the resin has cured, all that remains is to make holes. This can be also done with a hot needle. And then the most pleasant stage. I'm laying out the composition. When I'm satisfied with its appearance, I measure the length of the chain for each part. Attach them to the branch. I mark the places where the pins will be placed. water is dry, so it is quite easy to fix the pins. The most important thing is that all the details hang with their front side to us, and not sideways. Therefore, the number of links in the chain should be taken into account.